Hi, my name is Gabrielle Going, and today I'm presenting on Maybe They're Right, how the media depicts the relationship between minorities and police officers. With this topic, I wanted to date way back in history to slavery to show where the racial disparity came from, to transition into mainstream news and mainstream issues that have occurred that have created this tension between minorities and police officers, to transition into how it has affected the world so much that politics has gotten involved. One of the first sources I looked at was History.com, where they talked about slavery in America. There have been accusations that there's a correlation between slave days and present days. Because of this, it is important to explore this aspect of the research just because it has so much history in it. The History Channel is one that explores the history of civilization, which is important in understanding present day. Another source I decided to look at was Black Bodies, White Gazes, the Continuing Significance of Race, which looks at and studies the idea of the race paradigm. The race paradigm is the foundation of this research topic. Therefore, the understanding of such is imperative to the success of this paper. An excerpt from this review states, by the turn of the century, several states had laws that deemed 132nd African or African American ancestry the key that distinguished black from white, a distinction so narrow as to make explicit the invisibility of blackness and whiteness as racial categories. The race paradigm is essential in building this paper. Therefore, it is the base of the topic. The race gap in America's police departments is another source I decided to look at. This article gives real statistics of exactly what the police department is made of. And in that, it shows that the police department is made primarily of white individuals as opposed to minorities. The statistics in this article proves that the police department in total is composed more of white police officers than black police officers. Therefore, supporting these statistics show that there's a discrepancy between minorities in and out of the police department. The experiences of ethnic minority police officers in Britain under recruitment and social profiling and the performance culture was another article I decided to look at. Well, this scholarly article lists the credentials of its author, therefore it is an accredited source. In addition to its accreditation of this article explores this topic on a worldwide view. Therefore, it shows that this issue is more than just in the United States, which is also important when explaining something, especially for a research topic, to show that this isn't just happening in one area, it's happening around the world as well. So therefore, it affects more than just a certain population and a certain amount of people. The effect of police training and accountability on the mental health of an African American adult. African Americans become traumatized after hearing about or experiencing an issue with the police or police officers. Understanding the effects of this has on the mental health of African Americans is essential in fixing the problem of mental health within the African American community. This article gives valid details on the health spectrum of this article in this topic. And I believe that this is important to look at because you can't fix a problem without knowing what the problem is and how it came about. So therefore, a lot of mental issues within African Americans who have had police encounters that have possibly been bad led to this research as well. A war on cops, the effects of Ferguson on the number of U.S. police officers murdered in the line of duty. So as I previously mentioned that I wanted to mention more of topics and cases that have gotten the world by storm, for lack of better words. And so the Ferguson situation was similar to the Mike Brown situation in that it took the nation by storm. Therefore, it is important to include this part of present-day history between minorities and the police department. And this article supports my stand that there is tension between minorities and police officers. If you're unaware of the Michael Brown situation, there's an African-American male in Ferguson, and there's a situation in an encounter where he was shot multiple times by police officers, and he did not have a gun on him or anything of that nature, and no weapon. However, after they shot him multiple times, they killed him and left his body in the street. So while that was one situation, Ferguson, the city that he lived in and the city that it happened in, decided to take more action where there became riots and whatnot. In addition to Michael Brown, Philando Castile was a young man who had a fiance and he also had a child, and he was a cafeteria worker. He was pulled over, shot multiple times, and killed while his daughter was in the back seat and his fiance was in the passenger seat next to him recording the whole thing. However, in both of these cases, there was no conviction, and the location for Philando Castile was in Minnesota. Obama denounces bigotry and veiled shot at Trump. Former President Barack Obama has stated we betray the efforts of the past if we fail to push back against bigotry in all of its forms. Seeing that this issue has become so big that it has become the topic of political conversation shows the importance and relevance of the relationship between police officers and minorities. As I mentioned, I did want to talk about things that have happened back in the day, which is why I talked about slavery and how that transitioned into the race paradigm where there has been a disparity between minorities and whites, unfortunately. And from there, we see that now there are police officers in the police department that is made primarily of white individuals, and how that is a disparity and how that has caused tension between police officers and minorities because of cases such as Michael Brown's case and such as Philando Castile's case and many, many more. And so that's why I wanted to do this research topic. And from here on, I hope that me doing this research and doing this literature review will somehow contribute to fixing this problem of tension between minorities and police officers. So thank you for listening.